Andrea Schweitzer was a teenager during the 60s counterculture movement and the Vietnam War. She was also in the first coeducational class at Yale.
I thought it was pretty neat. I mean, I was a little bit passive about things at that time, and so my involvement tended to be kind of going along with, not really taking initiative, but when friends got tickets to concerts and stuff, I went. And my sister and I, one of my actually great regrets is that I didn't go to Woodstock because we almost went. I mean, we were really, my sister and I were planning it, and um, we had gotten the use of our car, family car, and I just can remember sitting with her at the kitchen table. We lived in New York, and so it wouldn't have been that long of a drive. But I just remember, her saying, I think it's going to be really a mob scene, and it's probably going to be so much traffic, and it's supposed to rain, and, so we never dreamed that it would be such a cultural, historical event, obviously, so we just sort of decided to bail, and we didn't do it. I mean, I lived in a suburb of New York City, sort of like Winnetka, um, and, it was majority Republican, and people were, there was, I mean, still this holdover from the 50s, this sort of paranoia about communism and the whole idea of the domino theory,
Yeah.
if one country fell, they would all. Um, so it was typical of my immediate area. Um, but it changed rapidly over the next few years.
Yeah. Was that directly impacted by this movement?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the movement was impacted by, the prolonging of the war and more people dying, and the sense that we weren't getting anywhere, and it all just seemed so futile, and, just like you just kind of increasingly were sort of asking yourself, what is the point of this, and then by the time I was in college, the draft had the lottery system, and I, remember, I mean, we didn't have TVs in our room, so there was a common room where we all gathered, and at Yale, I mean, I was in the first class of coeducation, so there were a lot more boys than girls at the school, and so we all were gathered, I mean, a group of people were gathered around the TV in this sort of common room while they announced the numbers of the lottery, and if you got a high number, you were really lucky and relieved, and if you got a low number, it was really creepy and scary. And I had friends who were, doing all kinds of things to try to get out of it. I mean, like one was going to a psychiatrist and getting a mental health, exemption, and another friend of mine who was really slight to begin with, really, just small, was drinking coffee all day long and taking, diet pills to lose weight so that he'd be underweight when he went for his physical for the draft. And some people, I didn't really know anyone have any close friends who went to Canada, but a number of people did. Maybe I could be more personal, moving a little bit away from the larger cultural changes. I mean, one aspect of how I experienced it was, what really had an impact on my life hugely was, this sort of movement of coeducation happening all around. All of a sudden, in my senior year of high school, Princeton and Yale both announced that they were going to accept women. And so that was very exciting. And when I, went to Yale, there were all these articles about, just all these changes. The Ivy League was taking women, and but it was not an easy experience. The ratio of boys to girls was crazy. It was 8-1 that first year, and people would make jokes. Oh, that must be so much fun, but it really wasn't. It was there was so much distortion in the social atmosphere, and there was also still a lot of sexism, just really rampant. I mean, really overt. I mean, things like, ridiculous things like when you walk through the dining hall with your tray of food, people would tap their spoons on their glasses just because a female was walking by, because that was like, I don't know, they were not. And they would still have mixers where girls from all-girl colleges like Vassar, which was still all-female, would come in on their buses all dressed up for the mixer, and we'd be there in our blue jeans and trying to figure out how this all fits together. So anyway, so there was that going on, and then my freshman year was also the year of the Kent State, all the huge occurrences leading to, major demonstrations and anti-war stuff. And at the same time, Bobby Seale, one of the Black Panthers, was on trial in New Haven, which is where Yale is. And so all these things sort of converged right in the spring of my freshman year, and we had this huge mass meeting of the whole university, like in the hockey rink, which was the only place big enough for everybody, and professors were, ranting and raving, and people were on different sides, and the decision was that they wanted to decide whether to keep the university open and have classes, or shut down, because all these demonstrators were coming from all around the country. People were coming to protest the Black Panther trial, and also sort of the whole issue of Cambodia, the invasion of Cambodia and Kent State. We didn't talk at all about the civil rights movement, and I don't know if this isn't just sort of being American, but that was an important part of my whole experience of growing up and of the changes that were happening. And my parents were active. This was before the 60s, really, that there was sort of an awareness about civil rights. Well, actually, that's another kind of myth, I guess, that was dashed, or a fantasy or a hope that was dashed for me. I can remember, I used to, in high school, I went to a neighboring town that was predominantly black, and I went to, as part of this tutoring program, and we tutored the kids in the school. And, but, the town that I was in was not really at all integrated. And I just remember thinking to myself, as a naive 17-year-old, that, well, at least by the time I grow up, our country will be fully integrated, and my children won't have to grow up in a little white ghetto with, never having any black neighbors or friends. And here we are. So that's just depressing to me and discouraging. I just felt, I just was very fortunate and just feel like I had a lot of privileges. And so the only thing that, the thing that changed all that was the women's movement, and my, I guess the raising of my consciousness, by that experience at Yale, made me become much more aware of, or I think sensitive to, the experience of people in American society who are more marginalized. I never thought of myself remotely as, any kind of, in any way, marginalized, but then being in this extreme minority, just gender-wise, just changed my perspective on that. And so I think I have a different sense of all of the different groups that make up American society.
How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must the white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must